Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ryan Retro channel. Lenovo have released a retro gaming handheld, kind of. This has been all over the news lately. The announcement that Lenovo, an actual large, big, recognizable, well-known company getting in the retro gaming handheld scene, joining the likes of AYN, Retroid, Anbernic and Neo. This, at least to my knowledge, is the first time an actual big multi-billion-dollar company is getting in the retro handheld gaming scene. But is this really made by Lenovo? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. First of all, let's see what it looks like. So, sliding it ever so slowly out of the box. Well, that really is sliding slowly. There it goes. We have the console itself underneath the usual gubbins like a USB-C to A cable, quality reassurances that we can all definitely read, a manual with a QR code, which if you scan on your phone, will take you to a page that cannot be found. Searching any of the information on this box also just leads to dead ends as well. You can go to the official lenovo.com.cn website, but you won't find this on there. Also not quite sure it has 1 terabyte of storage. Maybe it supports 1 terabyte of storage. This is available in white, black, and a really garish, horrible looking red and black color. So yeah, we got that one. And first impressions, it's actually massive. The feeling is not bad. The color is also not quite as bad as it looked in pictures. It has a kind of unique charm to it. The buttons are also quite nicely sized. They feel pretty decent as well. The stick feels absolutely lovely, although this does have a huge problem as well, which you may or may not be able to notice right now. I'll talk about it a little bit more later. On the side, you have a power button and a reset button. On the left side, you have volume up and down. All of these feel very plasticky and cheap and are quite hard to press. On the top, you have nothing. On the bottom, you have 2 USB-C connection ports, one for DC for powering it up and one for OTG, so if you want to connect something to this, like maybe a memory stick or something. We have a headphone jack, we have the SD card slot on the side, and it does come with a 128GB card included, one of those generic brandless cards that you should replace as soon as possible. I'll link reliable ones in the description, which are the ones I use for everything and never let me down. On the back, we also have these quite nice shoulder buttons. It's all quite nicely contoured to your hand. I did notice when I put this down on the sofa earlier, in certain positions you can actually press those shoulder buttons in quite easily just by balancing it on the sofa. So I was playing a game, I put it down for a minute, and it kept fast forwarding and doing all kinds of stuff by itself, so watch out for that. But the front is really where all the fun is, right? The front is where the action is. And we have some interesting choices here. We have the usual D-pad here, which feels pretty nice. It's big, it's quite comfy, it's a little bit cheap feeling, and it's also interestingly pretty concave, more than most. So your thumb can quite nicely rest in the middle there and just rock around. It's quite decent. The face buttons I also quite like. They're big, they're quite squishy, but they don't feel terrible. Start and select are totally fine as well, and I like the shapes of them. The button I don't really like is this huge button dedicated to RGB. And it doesn't even really work. You'll see when I turn the device on in a minute, but pressing the button doesn't really seem to do almost anything. I would much rather this be a dedicated menu button, a shortcut key like we have on TrimUI devices, Neo devices, and most devices on the market. Up here is another LED, and this only turns on when you're charging the device. This device trickles along at around 5 or 6 watts. It's quite a slow charger. We have one single speaker down here, which like a lot of these cheap Chinese handhelds is referred to as a horn. And then we have that one single analog stick, which does feel really lovely. It feels like a beautiful Hall effect stick, but let's see if you can notice what's wrong with it. I'll power the device on now, so we'll get to see the LED around the stick. You get the nice Lenovo logo pop up when we turn the device on. You can now see the LED around the stick, and if I push the dedicated RGB button, we can cycle through different colors. Although it doesn't seem to work all the time. It's quite unresponsive. It's not really very good, and it now seems to be extremely dim. Oh, there's a light back again. So I'm going to put this flat on the table now, right in the middle of the camera, and zoom in. So let's see if you can notice what's wrong with this analog stick. It might be tricky to see because of the angle, but I don't know if you can see that on camera. The analog stick is not in the center of the circle. It's slightly off center to the left. It's quite hard to show on camera, but it's a little bit infuriating. I mean, this obviously isn't a huge deal. It feels fine, the travel's good, it doesn't really seem to impede or affect the travel in a bad way. It seems fine, but when I saw this, I was kind of shocked. I don't think I've ever seen an analog stick just not in the middle before. Really does not inspire you with high quality. Anyway, kind of a nitpick. It's not really actually a big problem. I just thought that's kind of terrible. So now we've got the device turned on, let's have a little look at it. You'll see the problem I mentioned earlier here. If I have the device on the screen and kind of push down on it, it starts pushing the shoulder buttons in. So just by pushing the device, I'm hitting the shoulder buttons and moving around, which is obviously not what I want. So I'm gonna have to pick this up now and cradle it in my hands like a little baby. And now as I move around, you'll see it's a typical kind of emulation station front end. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, if you're buying a Linux-based device like this, it's probably what you want, something already set up, ready to go. And as you'll see, it comes with 40,000 games. Not bad for the price at all. So let's have a little look around at what's included. We have 1,500 MAME games, 31 Atari 2600 games, 66 WonderSwan Color games. We've got a few Capcom systems here with 28 games, 36 games, and 3 games. PC Engine, we've got over 350 games. The family computer, we have 1,600 games. The FC, which I think they're the same thing, aren't they? We have 14,000 games. 3,600 Game Boy games, 7,000 Super Famicom games, 1,300 Super Nintendo games. Are they not also the same thing? 124 N64 games, 2,000 Game Boy Color games, 1,000 Game Boy Advance games, 24 Nintendo DS games, 68 Sega SG-1000 games, 800 Sega Genesis games, 200 Game Gear games, 4,600 Mega Drive games. Again, that's basically the same thing as the Genesis again. 21 Genesis 32X games, 5 Dreamcast games, 147 Neo Geo games, 46 Neo Geo Pocket games, 600 PlayStation games, and then we're back to the beginning again. So you can see the kind of systems we're going to be able to play here. We're going to play our old retro games like our arcade cabinet games, things like the SNES, the Mega Drive, up to PS1, N64, and maybe we can attempt a little bit of Dreamcast. So I've added some games to my favorites already, so we can have a little look through at some of the games I like. So let's begin with the one I like to test speakers with, and one that should work on any handheld at any price bracket, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Mega Drive. Let's give that a go. Let's open it up. You get this very generic loading screen before every game loads. You can see here we're using RetroArch. Let's get a bit of volume and see how it sounds. Immediately, another dislike about this is that holding the volume buttons does nothing. You have to press them many times. And there's also no on-screen display for volume whatsoever, so you just have to keep pressing it and listen. The construction also feels dreadful when you do this. So let's put this down. I will grab my microphone. I'll put my microphone close to the handheld and let's listen to the speaker. The speaker is definitely not bad. The speaker's okay. The screen's also fine too. If we look at the screen, the quality is totally fine. No real problems here. Another pet peeve straight away is I can't find a way to adjust the brightness. I've tried every kind of imaginable shortcut using select, RGB, the stick, everything I can imagine. Can't find a way to adjust brightness, and even looking through the manual here at all the shortcuts we have, I can't see any way to actually change the brightness with shortcut keys, which is mad. But thankfully it does let us know that if you want to increase or decrease the volume, you can press the volume buttons. As with all of these cheap devices, and honestly just most handheld devices, pressing start and select will get out of the game and back into the main menu. So if you want to change the brightness, you're going to have to get out of the game you're in, get back into this main launcher menu, press start, come down to system settings, and here we have the brightness slider. It feels kind of crazy to me. You have to go into the system settings to change the brightness. Now, I'm hoping there is a shortcut hidden somewhere in here that I'm just too stupid to find. And if there is, please let me know in the comments below. I'll share it with everybody. But I've not been able to find one, and I spent ages pushing everything. We also have the LED settings here where we can just change the brightness of the LEDs. If you want to change the color of them, you can push the dedicated RGB button. Thank God that's there. Wow, what a treat. Here we can also change the user interface settings, and we can change the theme. We have all the usual themes you'd see on here, like ArcOS Carbon, which, looks okay. The Epic Kodi theme, which makes this look exactly like an R36S. But then, on the topic of looking like an R36S, if we go into the theme options and change to the theme called Switch Black, which is a Nintendo Switch ripoff theme, you'll see that it just straight up says R36S open source console across the top of the theme. This is just utter madness. When you consider that an R36S has the same features, the same power, an extra analog stick, and costs a third of the price of this. You can get almost 3 of these for the price of one of these. And while it is admittedly a bit bigger, that can be a pro and a con. But we're going to compare these a little bit more later. I'm just teasing you for now, you need to stay and wait for that. Let's stay focused on the Go2 console from Lenovo, and let's see what else it can do. I've tested a few of my favorite games on here to get a kind of idea of the range of performance and how things run. Things like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Genesis, of course, works absolutely fine. So does Game Gear, James Pond 2, runs lovely. Pokemon Ruby, of course, is running fine, and we'll come back to this soon because there's something I want to show you about this. Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, arcade classic, and a game like Tennis on the Game Boy, a nice simple game, work fine. One thing I do like about this handheld is they've automatically mapped all of the controls to the D-pad and the analog stick, so you can freely switch between both and use both. One thing I don't like as much is that they've stretched everything to fill the screen. I would prefer the original aspect ratio of this and a nice little bezel or overlay. So in order to change that, we do need to use Select as a shortcut hotkey, and then we can do various things. So if we use Select and X, that will bring us the regular RetroArch menu I'm sure you're familiar with. We can come back, go to Settings, Video, Scaling, Aspect Ratio, and you'll see by default everything's going to be set 4:3 to maximize the real estate of the screen. But I'm going to bring this down to Core Provided. So that's going to use the true aspect ratio of the actual system I'm playing. Now back in the game, I think this looks much better than the stretched out version it comes with. Look at that ace. That's just of course personal preference, but some of these handhelds you buy come already set up with the correct aspect ratio, nice little bezels and overlays set up for you. This doesn't. It just stretches out everything and honestly doesn't really look that great. So let's back out of this and try something a bit more demanding. Let's move up to PlayStation 1. Grand Theft Auto was going to be the game I would show to test out PlayStation 1 performance. But no matter what I do, the game just won't load. It gets stuck around here and then it just freezes. I'm using the included SD card, so it might just be a problem with the ROM perhaps. I'll show you a different PlayStation game. A game for the masochists out there, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. A game that was made before they figured out the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card battles. So you basically just smash loads of cards into each other and hope for the best. And without tons of extreme farming, well, that worked well, and then I lost it. Without loads of extreme, excruciating, tedious farming, your chances of winning the game are less than 5%. But hey, I remember having fun playing it as a kid, so it's not always about winning. As you can see, this game works completely fine, and PlayStation 1 should be fine on a handheld like this as well. So if all you want to do is play retro games up to PS1, it's going to be fine for that. It's going to work. Let's move into 3D territory now, Nintendo 64. This one seems a little bit laggy, so I'll use the Select and B shortcut to bring up the FPS counter on the screen. I'll also try to figure out how to move my car. So it says we're getting around 48 frames per second. You're watching this on a 30 frame per second video, and I'm not sure how smooth it will look for you, but it's honestly not that smooth. It's certainly not running at full speed, no matter what that frame per second counter says. It seems that this is a European ROM designed to work at 50 frames per second, and it believes that it's running at full speed. All I can say is this is not a perfectly smooth experience. It's certainly running less well than the retro games we played before. Don't let my incredible driving moves fool you. This is not a perfect experience. So then what happens when we move up to an even more challenging system? Let's try the most challenging system this may be able to run, which will be Dreamcast. And let's play the iconic game Crazy Taxi 2. One thing I can notice immediately is that this has the lowest resolution I think I've ever seen on a Dreamcast game on any of these handheld devices. The colors are all glitched out, things are missing, most of the game's in Japanese. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but the quality here is absolutely shocking. Again, let's bring the FPS counter up on here. It says 39 frames per second, but I am very skeptical of that. The music's skipping, it looks dreadful. This is not a nice experience at all, and I know we can get a better experience than this for the price. The frames per second continues to drop, now down to 26 frames per second. This is just a horrible experience. This handheld comes in at around $65, which is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but it's too much money for what this represents. And to put it into perspective, let's bring in a few contenders, some similar handhelds in similar price brackets, as well as one a little bit more expensive, to see what you can get for your money. So we've seen what we can do with the Go2. We can do everything up to around PS1 and maybe a little tiny bit of Dreamcast. And all of these devices have basically that same similar amount of power. The closest and most similar device is the cheapest one, the R36S. I believe they actually have the same chip inside, and this is basically just a rebadged version of the R36S. The R36S also will come with thousands of games. You'll be able to play all the same ones that you can play on the Lenovo. It even comes with Crazy Taxi 2. It runs equally as poorly, perhaps running slightly actually even worse here. But overall, you're going to get an extremely similar level of performance here for around $23 rather than $65. So if this is all you need, I highly recommend getting the R36S instead of the Lenovo. I think this is just better. I made a video on this device recently. I was actually kind of blown away by it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not that great. It's similar to the Lenovo. It's not a super fantastic handheld, but the value proposition with this one is incredible. I paid $20 for this, and at the time of filming, there are ones for around $23. For all of the thousands of games you get here, and they all run pretty decently, with the added versatility of having two analog sticks, which none of these other devices have, I highly recommend the R36S if you're on a budget. For the price, it's fantastic. Moving up a little bit, we have the Miyoo Mini. This one is kind of like a cult classic at this point, and this is one of the main handhelds that really kicked off this whole retro handheld boom. Again, I made another video about this one as well, and this one is using Onion OS, which is probably the best mobile operating system on any of these handhelds. You can just hit this one button in the middle and jump straight back into games where you were before. It's so good. So if I were to jump into my tennis game, for example, here I'm using a green Game Boy DMG theme, and then whenever I want to stop, I just hit that one button, it saves exactly where I was, takes a screenshot of it, and saves it for later. So then I can jump back into another game, like Pokemon, which I'm going to show off in a minute, and it will remember where I was. Then when I quit out of that game, I can just freely switch between all of my games, and I don't have to go back to the main menu. I jump straight back into where I was. I absolutely love this operating system, but it won't make me good at tennis. Next we have the TrimUI Brick. People who have watched my channel for a while will know this is my personal favorite. Of every single handheld I've ever shown on my channel, which at this point is a lot, this is my favorite handheld. This is my number one. Let's jump into that same tennis game, why not, for comparison. This one just really reminds me of my Game Boy Color I had as a kid, but it's so compact, so well made. It has metal accents. It's small, it's compact, it's really retro and reminiscent of those retro days when I was growing up. It has various lighting you can turn on, like where the cartridge would go. It just makes me giddy. I love it so much. It's so easy to use. It has great custom firmware choices. The screen is so sharp. Again, you're able to play up to some light Dreamcast, and just like the others, it doesn't run Dreamcast very well. It's quite laggy, the experience is really not that great, but the difference here is it's actually high quality. Hopefully this is visible on the camera. The difference in quality between these two is insane. I guess on the Go2 they've really lowered the resolution to try and improve performance, whereas here on the TrimUI Brick it is super sharp. Performance on both is not really that good for Dreamcast. I wouldn't recommend either for Dreamcast. But if you do get some lightweight Dreamcast games, at least on the Brick they look really sharp and clear. This one is just absolutely gorgeous. And if you decided you like the look of the TrimUI Brick, but maybe you wanted a more premium metal version, then you have that choice as well with the TrimUI Brick Hammer. At the time of filming, I found the TrimUI Brick for around $66, but it does occasionally go down to around $40 or $45. And the TrimUI Brick hammer right now is around $90, but you can regularly get these around $80 as well. These two are fantastic choices. I personally prefer the original plastic variant because it's lighter, and I really value something light when I'm going to carry it around with me often. But the metal version certainly feels extremely premium, and it kind of looks like something Apple would make to me. Super beautiful. These are the best. If I recommend anything to you guys, it's going to be the TrimUI Brick. This for me is the best handheld money can buy. What about the raw power of the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip? No, this is the one. If I have only one handheld in the world, it's going to be this. And while these are all quite similar money, prices fluctuate all the time, but at the time of filming I found them for $23, $45, $65, $66, $92. We have a slightly more expensive one now, $149, and at the time of filming currently out of stock. But this is just a comparison of something that's a similar size, similar form factor, but just so much better. Now again, this isn't a super fair comparison because this is $65 and this is $149, more than double the price. But if you did have a $150 budget and you were looking for something this kind of shape, size, style, this is just so much better. This is the Retroid Pocket Classic, and this can not only easily play Dreamcast games, but it can play things up to light Switch and PC games. It's running Android, it's got a full touch screen. You're able to install all kinds of apps on this, really customize it. You can play Android games, of course, like the Android version of Stardew Valley here with full touch support. It's just brilliant. You are losing the analog stick here, which is a real shame for me because if I was going to play the more demanding games like GameCube and Switch, I'd want an analog stick, to be honest. But if you are looking for this kind of vertical handheld, I don't think you can really do better than the Retroid Pocket Classic. It's just a gorgeous design, comes in loads of colors. This is the Pokemon variant, similar to my Pokemon N64 I loved as a kid. Has super comfortable contoured shoulder buttons. It's just really delightful. There are a lot of fans of this device, and for good reason. I did make a video before shooting this out with the TrimUI Brick, and for me, I prefer the Brick because it's just easier to pocket and take with me. But both of these are massive winners. They are both incredible, and you can't go wrong with these. These are incredible. I highly recommend both of them. So I've now opened the same game on all of these devices because I want to show you what is by far my biggest peeve with the Go2. It's going to be hard to show you because it's quite hard for me to match all the brightnesses on all of them. Some of them are a little bit darker and brighter than others. It might be hard to really come across on camera, but there's something weird about the color. The tint or something just looks a bit off. It's very similar to the R36S. These two are quite similar to each other, but you'll see the Retroid device is, if anything, too saturated. Retroid have a habit of oversaturating their devices. To my eyes, the Brick looks the best. The colors here are gorgeous, deep, not overly saturated, but nicely saturated and beautiful. The Miyoo also doesn't really look that great, but I think it looks quite neutral, not bad. Looks quite decent. This one looks incredible. This one also looks fantastic with the vibrant colors. These don't really look very good. The R36S is quite washed out, but still not bad. The Go2 is washed out, but also just a bit weird. It's kind of hard to explain, but I noticed when I was testing, it didn't matter what game I was playing. The colors always looked a bit off to me. It almost looks like there's still a screen protector on it or something. But there isn't. There was one on when I first opened it and I peeled it off. Not a screen protector per se, but you know, the film that comes on the screen. It seems kind of like there's still something covering the screen because everything's just washed out and slightly oddly colored. It's possibly impossible to show you on camera like this, but the colors just don't look good. But let's talk about the product and where it could be placed. Does it have a place? Does it make sense? And is it made by Lenovo? Well, if we imagine it is made by Lenovo, it's all completely legit. This is a Lenovo product, and Lenovo could get this into regular stores like their Lenovo Legion Go series. Suddenly it gives it a purpose. Now, of course, it cannot come loaded with an SD card full of ROMs like this. That would never happen. But if they could get this into retail stores where you never see devices like this, I did see apparently there were some R36S consoles in Micro Center somewhere, but generally speaking, we never see these kind of devices in retail stores. We do see Lenovo devices like the Legion Go, the Legion Go S. We see those in tons of stores. Even where I live in Korea, if I go to somewhere like Toys R Us, they have Legion Go consoles. So if you could get these into places like Toys R Us and also technology stores, suddenly it's got something that the others don't. It's got easy availability. You know what they say, the best ability is availability. So while it has a washed out screen, an off-center analog stick, not the best performance in any category, and kind of suspect build quality, being available to the masses who, let's be honest, most people don't know about these devices, gives it a reason to exist. But is it actually made by Lenovo, or is it a scam? As hinted at by Retro Dodo's wonderful Brandon S. Did a fake Lenovo retro handheld just hit the market? Well, honestly, we don't know exactly yet because there's a lot of dead ends. When you search for the product, you don't really get anywhere. When I scan the QR code, it leads me nowhere. When I search for all this information, I also don't really get very far. I did manage to get an online manual for this device, but it just took me to a generic manual website. It wasn't a Lenovo website. They also very kindly included this free little carrying case, which is completely unbranded. So that doesn't help either. What's likely going on here is this is a white label product like the R36S, and some company have paid Lenovo to use their branding. This has happened before. Things like the Lenovo Think Plus earbuds and Lenovo Liku. I believe those were also deals where brands would pay Lenovo to put their recognizable name on their product. And if you look at this generic product with no branding, people are much more likely to buy it when they see a recognizable brand, Lenovo, all over the cover. Suddenly it gives it credibility. So I believe what's happening is a company or multiple companies have signed some kind of contract with Lenovo that lets them use their branding in order to sell these handhelds, and then Lenovo will get obviously a cut of the money. With those kind of deals, I believe they're not really meant to go outside China, so it's unlikely this will become available in Western markets. You're going to have to order it from AliExpress. I will put an affiliate link in the description to all of these products if you want to help out my channel and buy one of them, or 5 of them. But I do not really recommend you buy this. Honestly, the build quality is not great. I mean, it does have a unique colorway, which is at least interesting in my handheld collection. But I just think if you are going to buy this, just go for anything else on this table. Save yourself $40 and get the R36S, which is basically the same console. Save yourself $20 and get the Miyoo Mini Plus or the smaller Miyoo Mini for that fantastic game switching experience. Spend basically the same money, or less if you find it on sale, and get Ryan Retro's favorite handheld, the TrimUI Brick. Spend just a little bit more money and get an all-metal, super high-quality, premium TrimUI Brick hammer. Or if you have a bit of a bigger budget, you want to stretch out the budget a little bit to maybe around $150, the Retro Pocket Classic, if it comes back in stock soon, just completely blows this away. This will be able to do anything you could possibly want to do on this form factor. So those are my thoughts on the Lenovo Go2. Don't recommend buying it, but it was fun to check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful or useful in some way. If it was, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And let's make sure to say hello again.